Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and we are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women by women. And if you're new to the show, this is both a podcast and a video cast where we really talk to female entrepreneurs who are owning their shit, who are rocking it, and who are just really living in alignment and on purpose. And so today I am really honored to be introducing you to Enchantress Shane. She is a shaman of fearlessness and joy for women to shine with the confidence of a showgirl. Her teachings include burlesque, the Fuck Your Fears game, and the Enchanted Burlesque Coven. Her education is master's in special education, theater, and years of workshops and trainings, and most important, her heartfelt intuition. She runs the Facebook group The Awkward Enchanted Coven for magically creative women to feel safe and expansive in sisterhood. And I, just as a personal note, I met Shane a few years ago at a connection, it's called Connection Camp, where you really like connect to yourself and connect to other people. And so there's no like screens or devices. And Shane just blew me away because she was brave enough to get on stage and do this incredibly hilarious comedy routine. And I just fell in love with her. So it's one of those things like, if you're listening to this and you want to know how to make people love you, be super fucking vulnerable and get on stage in front of people, because that is what Shane did. And I still to this day like have the most like heartfelt appreciation for her boldness and braveness. So welcome, Shane, to the show. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thank you for sharing that story and for having me. I'm excited to share here.
Yeah. So it sounds like, I know personally, like from seeing you on stage and, you know, you were talking about back then, how you were doing like teaching children, and then you were doing this comedy show and kind of interweaving that. And so I'm a little bit curious about where you were and how you got into this role that you're doing now, which I just love.
I love that question. So I followed my feet. I ended up getting a master's in special education. And I was a therapist, and I was working with children with special needs, mainly autism. And they really rocked my world because they were really sensitive and they were really unapologetic. Like if they didn't like what I was offering or doing at 4 years old, they're like, all right, I'm not talking or looking at you. And it was really profound to be with a child that wasn't going to fall for my bells and whistles. And then during college, for my when I was in undergrad, I was a stripper. I was stripping, and I was finding all these similarities in children with autism and children in general who are very just like, I don't want to play with you, I'm done. And men who are like, I want this, I want, and just very free and unapologetic. And I was like, where do women get this kind of playground? And at the time I was still parent coaching, and I was working with families, and I realized, I got to work with mom. And then I was seeing if mom was jealous and on any level of me and their child, or if she was depressed or sad, if she was anything other than grounded and centered, even for moments, that the whole family was going to feel it. So again, I just followed my footsteps. I ended up graduating from Mama Gina's Womanly School of Arts. And they were like, yeah, stripping is cool. Being sexy is cool. And I was like, what? I've always kept it separate. Like in schools, I would just really dumb down my looks, my body. But I was embodied. And so it was confronting to a lot of teachers. And so I just, again, kept following my feet. And then I was like, what if I taught moms to be sexy just for their own health? And then I kept following, and I was like, a lot of the moms I was working with were business owners, and they were juggling special needs children, a business. And I just kept, there's a lot of divine guidance for me, but also just like, since I was young, I want to have fun and I don't want to be told what to do. So just ended up that I've been an entrepreneur since I'm 8. I always wanted to have my own business. and whether it was babysitting or typing resumes. So it just like all started coming together. Sexiness, the play of the children, working with families, being a behaviorist, owning a business, and really seeing that when we're of service in a business or a business type environment, we feel good about ourselves as women and we naturally heal instead of going into a healing place, which is like, I'm broken, please fix me. It's more like I can be of service and creatively expansive with passion. And in the back end, I get to heal because I'm being of service. So I love my Fuck Your Fears course because it's encompassing everything, the inner child, the wounded mother, the sexy goddess, the smart intellectual. And it's like being bold and courageous in your business so that it feels like a thing. It's not just like, oh, I have a business and it's not really happening. It's just like something to talk about, but on the inside, nothing's really happening.
Wow, that
Yeah.
sounds really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And so, how do you connect with your audience, and how do you find them? And I know where are you located? I know you're in New York, but like
Well,
where?
I live in Rockaway Beach,
Okay.
and I'm a super introvert. So I do I would say 80% of my work at home. And I have this big online presence, but like, it's because it's really easy for me to be an introvert and sensational from my house.
Yeah.
So I help a lot of women with online businesses. And then I hold workshops every so often. Um, but basically I'm, New York City based when I'm really discerningly showing up, or I'm working from home doing things like this.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so what do you feel like has been the biggest key to your success?
So there is a part of me that is very stubborn. At 3, at 7, at 16, I can remember just being like, it's my way or it's not happening. So I deal with that on a daily basis of like, where is it helping me? Where is it not? So I think really just thanking my, ancestors and family. I'm the firstborn in this country. They came from really hard times, survivors of the Holocaust, and something in my genetics, something in my intrinsic body is like, I am not fucking suffering. That is not happening. I am here to have joy. And so that's part of it. And the other part is I really, I use my privilege. I'm a white Jewish woman, I feel beautiful. I know my power. And I'm grateful every day that I actually care. And so, for a while I worked with kids in prison. I worked with domestic abuse survivors. Like I love the most needy and sensitive of populations. Um, Again, I think because I can relate to the suffering, because I've had a beautiful childhood, but deep in their soul, my parents were born in a displaced persons camp. Like there's some suffering there.
Yeah.
So for me to understand that, I can go really dark with people and also make it fun. Because I think when I was a therapist, it was like, let's talk about what's wrong. Let's focus on what doesn't work. And then becoming an actor, I was like, oh, let's take what doesn't feel good, bless you, and explore with it. Now, I sound like I know what I'm doing, but I didn't know all along the way. And that's a huge piece for women entrepreneurs who are like, I just want to wait till I don't have to worry about my bills. I have to just wait until my kid's grown up. I have to wait. And it's that kind of waiting that keeps especially women stuck, because I want everyone to know we're working through lineage stuff, which is like, be a good mom, be a good woman, get married, be loud, but not that loud. Like keep it under wraps. So I didn't know all this was going to add up. I didn't know, oh, I could be a stripper and then talk about working with kids. Like, and if I can combine those two worlds and make it make sense and have very little pushback. I had one nasty woman this past week, but other than that, since I've been coaching since 2010, I graduated 2000, like for 16 years, I've been doing this. And if I can combine stripping and childhood stuff, anybody can do anything and they're ready. Even if you don't think you have enough certifications or money or anything. You asked how I find people. how people find me. So in the Awkward Enchanted Coven, I give so much free content and so many free challenges. So even if you have no money, I have one goddess. She's not, she has no money. She's like, has no money. I believe her. She does all of my challenges and she has grown exponentially and never paid me $1. And I'm like, good, because I love helping people. And I worked hard on saying like, okay, I have to charge people too. But if you're committed and you have will, you can get free coaching all over the place. And
Right.
especially in my world, I really treat everything like it's paid. Like if I'm doing it, I'm all in.
If you're
So
doing it, it's still sacred.
it's sacred. And I show up like it's sacred. It's not like, oh, this is free. Who cares? It's like, no, I really care. And then the people that want to go further with me and want to step into the container of like the Fuck Your Fears course and really want to get shit done in this world that has money involved, like, great, I want that too. But there's
Yeah.
options, there's levels, there's, yeah.
Well, and it's always fascinating to me. I've done a lot of work around money as well, and it's so fascinating like when we can shift that space of like I don't have any to oh, money is a tool.
Yes.
It's a tool that actually helps me grow in an exponential way.
Yes.
And it's beautiful to be able to give free content, to be able to help the people who are not there yet, right? Like they're going to get there. I think that's, to me, that's been a big lesson for me in the last year was everyone gets there in their own time, whether it's this particular lifetime or another. Like
Mm,
everyone will get there.
I love that.
And that freed up me, like, because I was like, but I gotta bring them all, I gotta bring them right now, and they gotta come, and so I wasn't in a space where I could like honor where someone was in their journey,
Mm.
and that really gave me some freedom. So I don't know, that came up, I don't know why that came up, but
It's great. It's great because I have that muscle too, which is like, I have to rescue everybody,
right.
and everybody has to be my client because otherwise, and then I'm like, you know what? I can't actually service everybody. And even if I think, because I talk to anyone who gets on the phone, I'm like, I could totally help them. But if they're not in that alignment with me, it's super okay, actually. And the abundance
It's
mindset,
perfect.
everybody, like
Yeah.
the people who graduate Fuck Your Fears, I'm like, you can work with women in the Awkward Enchanted like I'm not hoarding everybody. And I actually think it's better that more people learn from more people that are vetted by me, so that, because I really, I want people to get good coaching and who are trained well. And I do have to say, I really train women well to really show up for others and make them great.
I love
There's
it.
so many entrepreneurs and coaches that just, because they can't help it or they don't realize that they're just like self-focused. And
And
it's like,
it depends too, like on who they're working with. I mean, I've seen this in my own experience, and I'll be honest, like in the beginning of my coaching journey, like 5 years ago when I started my business, I hired coaches who were in a fear space around money,
hmm,
but it wasn't super obvious because on the outside they're making more than $1 million a year, but there's such an underlying, and over time I was able to see why do I have this discord with this person? It's because my soul is like, but there is no limit. Like like you don't have to manipulate people into your space.
yeah,
And you can like serve from this place of love and vulnerability and authenticity and complete openness and know that you are always safe.
yeah,
But I personally did a lot of healing to get there. So I
yeah,
loved what you were saying about like when we can give to people and stand in our own truth and like help them, that is healing for us as well. Talk
totally.
about that a little bit more, because that would like when you
Yeah.
were saying that in the beginning, I was like, oh yes, I wish I would have known that.
It's so, I love that you pulled that golden thread out, because women are getting ready to get ready to get
Right.
ready to get ready. And that is such a dark place to stay. And I have to this woman the other day, and anybody who's listening, she said, I have these fleeting moments where I really believe anything is possible, but they're so short. So I'm going to get herbs to try to really keep in that place. And I'm like, sister, herbs are not going to keep you motivated. Like having a group, having accountability, taking massive action, the masculine energy, which is like, oh, you want to have a group? What date are you creating it? Do you want to do it right now when we're on the phone? So it's like this femininity of in business is great, but it has to be in a container. Otherwise it's just floating, and it's like you keep going to workshops, and nothing gets done. There is nothing that will bring you into your business other than having a client and showing
Right.
up, and the bar is raised. It's like, oh man, someone's paying me.
I got to show up.
To show up. And then in that, because the old paradigm is teacher student, one teacher, one student, one guru, one student. And in coaching, it's a symbiotic growth system where, we don't have to fake it. We don't have to say, I know everything, I'm the top-notch coach. It's like, wait a minute, I have to be learning because I've never met this individual person before, and everybody is different. Nobody wants cookie cutter coaching. That's like, go to the therapist, have your conversation on the couch. It's lame, it's limited. So when you have a client, there is nothing that will give you the life experience of realizing how ready you friggin' are than
Right.
when you're in the shoes of being of service.
And this just came up for me, so clearly someone needs to hear it.
Ooh, I love
There's
that.
this space when, like, I know that in the beginning of my business, I was like, I let my ego set my prices
Hmm.
for a long time, and I did not feel aligned with them. So guess what? People don't pay it. Like, whether they know it or not, they're reading your energy, and they can feel when you do not believe in your products, in your services, in your pricing, and they will not buy from you. They won't. And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's a beautiful learning piece. And so I noticed, like, for me, it's like, no, like, don't charge $10,000 or $5,000. Like, charge what feels really grounded and really aligned. And then people will sign up, and they will be like, oh yeah, well, here's my card. Like, here it is. And it's something that, we have, you mentioned how there needs to be the balance between the feminine and the masculine. And I think that is, I know, I will call it for myself, it's a trap that I got into after I worked in utilities in a corporate environment for 18 years. After being in such a masculine, space for 2 decades, I went the other way on the pendulum, and I was like, I'm just going to meditate all day, and I'm not going to make appointments, and I'm going to wake up when I feel like, like, there was real flow for a while.
Yeah.
And I had to bring that back in and heal that portion of me that said, do, and see, like, no, actually the masculine is beautiful because it is the inspired action, but it can only be inspired when the feminine is in place.
Totally.
And that is when things pop for people, and it's so freaking powerful.
Yeah. It's, and the perfect situation. And, I think your audience will probably know about laws of attraction and laws of potentiality. The way I see it with the way women sign up is the way clients sign up with them. So and it reminds me of a woman I have to be in touch with. I had one woman, I did a Jumpstart Turbo Boost month with her. She said yes. She paid me in full the same day. The month we spent together, she made triple what she paid me because she listened to her intuition, paid me, did the work, showed up, and it came back to her. I have another woman, and this is partly my fault, but she was like, okay, I want to pay you out. And it's like, it's $50 here, $25 there, because she couldn't swing the bigger payments. And that's even, a belief. Like, I can't swing it.
Right.
It's, you hold back and you're like, I have to focus on my bills.
It's fear.
Not being on paying them. Well, then you're focusing on your bills and not paying them. And that's what you're focused on. Meanwhile, you have 20 people, even 20 people on your mailing list. Have a group program, charge $385, make it your value at the time, like what you said earlier.
Right.
And the idea of not being ready and not taking action keeps you not being ready, not taking action.
Yeah.
So it's a dance, there's no exact way to do it. There is encouragement to work people through that sales process. But if you're not standing on a foundational strong ground and believing in yourself, and this is why coaching in groups really help, like you said, the person might not know why they say no, but they just feel some wonky energy and they're like, you know what, this isn't the right time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that'll make a woman second guess herself by hearing a no. Like that rejection wound runs deep.
It's so deep. And that's been, it is such, it can be confronting to be an entrepreneur. You
Listen,
have to
it's
see, say it again.
the best place to grow. It'll
Oh, it
be
is.
it's going to be confronting. You're going to get pissed. You're going to avoid. You're going to run away. You're going to get sick. You're going to get busy. Your grandma's going to need you to visit. And you still have to be like, and this is boundaries, right?
Right.
I believe in this because, what else? You could go suffer in some job, right? And try to conform. But that inner voice, that entrepreneurial spirit that most women have, if it doesn't shut up, there's going to be some vice that takes its place. It's going to be overeating, gossiping. You're going to have a latent anger that leaks out like bile. So go kicking and screaming or go surrendered. Like it's your choice.
Absolutely. So the question that came up for me as you were talking on that was, what do you feel when I say the words, the way you do anything is the way you do everything?
Totally. I mean, I remember learning that in my improv acting class, and there was like an opportunity to go to a party or go to acting class. And everything we do matters, right? So you don't have to walk around hyper vigilant, but you have to get trained in, if, let's say, I have women that sign up for Fuck Your Fears and then disappear, right?
Right.
So they don't know where they go. I call, I'm not going to hawk you, but I will check in a bunch of times. And so where else do you run away from things in your life? Like,
Right.
Is it your children? Do you run away in relationships? Like when things get extra emotional or extra intense, it might feel like a confrontation. And most of us have been trained to run away from confrontation. So the ego, the part of the mind that's hypervigilant, fight or flight or freeze, is like, this feels unsafe, and it's not logical, but the body is like out. And so it's really, like you said, it takes women, it takes men time. And then they'll, at some point, whether this lifetime or another, be like, okay, I'm back. So the tendency to avoid, it's an epidemic. It's really high. I have so many women who get on a phone call, they say yes, I take their card, and then all of a sudden they're freaking out. Once you take the card information, it's like the action has been taken, and then I'm able to coach the person. But if somebody says, I'm not sure, I've been doing this new technique that I love, and it feels really confrontational in my body, but I ask my potential clients, are you ready to say yes or no by the end of this call? Both are really strong, but I'm not, it's the biggest disservice for me to leave someone on the fence because it's avoidant. And so I feel it in my body. I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I have to say this. But if somebody says, I don't know, I'll get back to you, or we're going to talk in 2 days, I'm holding them in my heart. And I don't want to do that if they're not signed up,
This brings up such a valid point for me because it is what society doesn't teach us and what most sales coaches say, or sales trainings, etc., marketing things don't talk about, is how us as highly sensitive people, and I'm whoever you are, listener, if you're listening, if you're attracted to this, you're sensitive, you're very energetically sensitive, because we don't attract people who aren't.
Right.
We take other people's energy on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a powerful thing to say, are you ready to, at the end of this call, make a yes or no decision? And either is okay. Like either one is in service to you, but limbo, that unknown, we hate it. We hate not knowing what's coming up in our lives or for an event. Or I did a brief interview with somebody the other day and she was like, I just don't even know what you're going to ask me. And I was like, we're just going to have a conversation. But that unknown was so uncomfortable for her, you know? And so think about that. Like, it is wildly uncomfortable, but we as women have also been taught, like, since we don't like rejection, we don't like to reject the other person.
Oh, I love that point. Ah, yes. And you know what I also say? I'm so glad you said that is I'm going to like you even if you say no. You
Ugh.
can still take my free content. You could still be in my world. You could be in my playground. But I don't want to, I won't like you if you avoid me, because then I'm like, I care. I know your story. I know your stuff. And now you're running away from me and you're
You're
ghosting.
hiding.
You're
Yeah.
hiding.
Yeah.
So the amount of coaching that I don't want to do to get someone to say no, it is so draining. It's really draining. So my role is to be even more firm about it. And, you know, I'm working on it, but I am a sensitive person. And when somebody opens up the heart and tells me their story and their stuff, and then we talk money, that is not something women have been doing for a very long time in this
Right.
lifetime, you know?
It's new.
So it's the emotion piece and the money piece. When those two things come together, everybody wants, not everybody, most women want to go back to bed, hide, pull the blanket over their head and be like, I don't want to do that. And you know what? It's great. I don't want to work with you if you want to run away, but I want you to say no, because then I'm leaving that person in a better place. They don't have to think about me. They don't have to, like, you know, play with their bills. They don't have to mind fuck themselves for the next 2 days. And, you know, when I ask people, you want 2 days to think about it. Are you thinking about money anxiety, or are you actually thinking about the program? And if someone's going to go for 2 days and think about the money, I don't want to hold that space, because I'm connected. There's a cord that is now formed. And like, as entrepreneurs, we need to know how to gently and lovingly cut the cord before we hang on to muck.
And you know what? This just brings up one thing that I've done in the past is like, so you're a no for now.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just say it. I just
Really.
call it like, so you're a no for now. That's
Yeah.
okay. Great. Now you know.
Right.
Like, you're a
Right.
no right now.
So good. Otherwise, it gets added onto that overwhelming plate of shit that already, wherever, like you said earlier, where it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So now you have a million things on your plate that you're not sure about. So here, I'm going to add to the unsure. No
Which
thanks.
creates guilt and shame. And then we're that internal dialogue that's like, oh, it's just one more thing that I can't make a decision on, and I'm not clear, and I'm no good, and look at how shitty I'm doing, and you know, all these different things, like whatever those things are, just
Yes.
we just keep going, right? Like, I've done that in my space.
Perfect example. I had this woman, and I love to share it. We spoke, we didn't speak, we kept missing each other. She wrote the nastiest thing on my Facebook public figure picture. She's like, you're a pseudo coach, stripper, just taking money from people, con artist. And I was like, wow, that's like a real precision dart. And it took me like not even a 30th of a second to be like, okay, that's totally not true.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she was very angry. And that's what happens when women stay in indecision on so many things. They start to get prickly and blame people. When in fact, if they could find their center and say yes or no, they wouldn't have a paper plate loaded up with wet, oily, greasy foods that's going to break open, and then they lash out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really interesting for me to see, like, to own those things are not true. And to see a woman in real pain that wasn't able to even take all my free content, but she had to make it my fault. Like, she made it about me, and her anger, you know, really, it wasn't just seeping out. It was like a big crash. So if the implosion that women are experiencing, you know, we're in the most free time of our lives right now, you know, where it's like, you could say pussy, like you could say fuck you, everything's sort of okay. So the only thing in our way, and I still am in my own way sometimes, is ourselves.
Right.
You know, that's it. There's no laws, there's no mandates, there's no, maybe there's no husband, you know, you're free to be you and me. So the only thing blocking our liberation and freedom in business these days is ourselves. And that sucks. And I see a lot of women in pain about getting started. And you know what? It's okay. I'm not everyone's jam, but there's so many coaches that could help people from suffering, whatever the coaching might be for.
Right. I love that. And so that brings up, when you first were talking and like knowing how embodied you are in your sexuality and the burlesque and that you're a stripper and like all of that, I and I've been talking about this in my space, like what's been coming to me for the last couple of years, just to get you up to speed and whoever's not heard this before. Orgasm is the way to abundance. And it's the orgasmic energy. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh my God, I'm coming, like I'm climaxing, but it's the orgasmic energy of being so excited and passionate about what we're doing, how we're living, what is going on in our lives, how we're helping people. And I find that, yes, in some ways, like we need to be more loud about our sexuality and that we don't fit in the box. Like you had mentioned, like I couldn't talk about being a stripper and being a teacher. Like those two things don't match. That's bullshit. Like I call bullshit, like, and I was loving that you're like, yeah, I had this realization and I get to talk about all the things, because for so long we made it so that like, but I can only be this person in this particular environment, and then I can be this person. And I did the same thing. I was in corporate, right? Like I could only be, the right admin assistant or the right like analyst or the right like whatever that box was. I couldn't be my full, sexual person. And not that I needed to be sexual at work, but I couldn't even like talk about where I had gone the night before or what I had done or any of that thing, right? Like there was so much separation. And so talk to me a little bit about how you help women step into their embodiment and their sexuality and like owning all of these pieces of ourselves that we've been told need to be separate and hidden.
Oh, you ask such good questions. So, and I want to be really clear, like sexuality doesn't need to involve any other people, right?
Thank you.
Sexuality. I did a practice with my group the other day, and they were like fascinated that the energy we played with brought them into a sexual state. No touching, no spank bank reference, just using our own energy. And the clitoris has 8,000 nerve endings. The sole purpose of it is for pleasure. There's no other reason for this body part. That's interesting. We all got here because we're sexual beings. And yet it's ignored. When little girls go to school, there's a very clear name, just as young as whatever, it's, 3 years old, there's a very clear name for the penis. And for little girls, there's like very, very interesting names. And so from the get-go of coming out of a diaper into underwear, there is not a streamlined name for the vulva, or most people say vagina. So that alone sends a message to a little girl like, don't worry about that. That's your pocketbook, or that's your Christmas tree, or that's your front butt, that's your poopy. Like, so at that level, as children, we're not taught a sexual education just about our bodies. There are women that I have in my groups that are in their 70s, a woman who's 19, who'd never seen what her body looked like. She'd never looked at her vulva before. And it's like, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it seems natural to me. I was always one of those weird kids that like investigated my body, but so if you're not looking at everything, then
Can I just make an observation about that?
Please, yeah.
I feel like it is more acceptable, and I may be wrong, I'm not Jewish, but I feel like it's more acceptable in the Jewish culture than it is in the white Protestant culture.
Maybe. So not the Jewish culture I grew up in, but
Okay.
what I do notice when I go to like the like Turkish baths or like a spa castle, everyone who's not American, they're just like washing themselves, hanging
So maybe
out.
it's more of an European thing.
I think it's European for sure.
Yeah.
Like my parents are from Europe. So my grandmother was naked around me, no problem. My mom, no. like once, and I must have stared so much that she was like, I'll never do that again. But the people that I'm thinking of are like Russian, and they're just out. It's the body is not sexual. Energy is sexual.
Right.
So, there's so many pieces to talk about this, but as an entrepreneur, the very masculine, I can't think of the word. I was going to say patriotic, but it's not patriotic. Patriarchal
Yes.
way is like, put on a suit, shove a tampon in, and go to work. Put on all black. Don't stand out, right? And so involving, like, as an entrepreneur, you as a woman, like, if you don't feel good about yourself, if you're working from home and you're sitting with holes in your pajamas and you're like trying to get clients, it's not going to work. You need to put your sparkle, you need to put your makeup on, get in your femininity. And I also want to say, there's a couple of women in my group who are not feminine at all. And for them, they're like, I got a new sweatshirt, I got a new buzz cut. And I'm like, great. So whatever your entrepreneurial woman body looks like and feels like, do it at your top notch. And the sexuality piece is the vulva has enough parts to be a proper little brain. And whether you climax or not, when you feel pleasure, it releases endorphins in the brain and serotonin. And these are the happy feel good things. When you have happy feel good chemicals running, you're going to be like, beep, boop, boop. Hi, I would love to share my program with you. Versus like, you're shut down, you're disconnected from your sexuality, and you're like, oh man, I need money. Hey, and that desperation.
Right.
That undercurrent of desperation is rampant in the entrepreneurial world. And you see it in a post. You see it when there's a trend people are following, like, I'm going to share this big emotional story, and then at the end, give a pitch. That is so yucky to me. It feels so gross. And so I'm just myself. I've never been more successful in my life. And I can't believe when I'm like myself, people like, you're amazing. The first time that happened, I do Monday night Pussy Power Hour. And I was like, it's the middle of winter. I was so tired. It was like I was on morphine. I just couldn't move. And I was like, oh shit, I have 10 minutes. I have 6 minutes. I have 2 minutes. And I turned my live on and I did the class totally laying down with a blanket. And everyone was like, this is amazing. And after that, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, the more I have permission to just be whatever I'm being,
in the moment,
people have permission. And that's your leadership, right? That's the title. It's like, leadership looks like whatever the fuck we want it to look like. Look at our country. Like, you could be any kind of leader and get away with it. Let's do that. Let's be any kind of leader and get away with it.
And I love this, like, just brings up like what you had mentioned at the beginning too, which was you saw children being completely unapologetic about who they were, about what they desired, and they were willing to just ignore the shit out of you if you weren't showing up the way that they wanted you to show up, or they had no interest in it, right? Like, that's, I think that us as women especially, we've been taught, we've been spoon-fed, like, yeah. But to show up and to be successful, you have to do this. Totally. You have to mark the boxes and you have to do all the things and you have to be perfect. And I call fucking bullshit.
Totally. And listen, this isn't the easy road. This isn't the road where it's like, oh, cool, I have all the, having freedom and having no money really sucks. And then it's like, you could go to work, have a ton of money and no time. So this is a new paradigm we're in.
It
where
is.
Get to just really create. And for all the women that say I don't have money for coaching, it's like, if you have at least 20 people or 10 people on your, everybody has 200 people in their social life, whether they're on social media or not. So if you just start saying, hey, I'm running a dance group. I have a client on, Zoom once a week for moms who can't get their bodies moving. So we spoke and she was like, I don't have a landing page. I don't have this. I'm like, these moms don't want to read that shit. They just want to pay you. She's a drama therapist. She's a dance therapist. They just want to pay you and get started. Your ego wants to have a landing page and you will have one, but get this thing started. They're laying around feeling like shit. If you could help them solve their problem, that's what they're going to pay for. They don't care about your brand colors. They don't care about anything. And that will come. But don't put yourself in a hole. And my web designer friends are going to be pissed, but don't put yourself in a hole making a website if nobody's paying you.
Right. Because all that does is then feed the, I'm not ready. I don't,
Monster. Yes.
and you're not doing anything productive. And I think that's what I've learned the most. Like, yeah, sure, I learned I can build a website. I've done it. But was that really building my confidence in serving people?
Oh, good. I love that you said that.
Not at all.
The confidence, that's like part of the outside confidence. It's like the
Right.
inner life has to be able to not just give out your card and go to a talking heads networking event. You have to live it. When I walk in a room, I love it. People are like, oh shit, something. That's something. The other day, this was so funny. I went to a networking thing in Rockaway and it was really cool. And I had to leave early. And I was like, all right, everybody, I just said what I said. And two people just stood up. They're just bodies stood up. And I was like, that's adorable. People just come to, they feel the magnetism. They feel the embodiment. They feel like, oh, she's real. She's not giving me her elevator speech. My elevator speech is different every time I say it. And that's because whatever's present for me in that moment
Right.
is what's going to come out of my mouth. And when these people stood up, I was like, that's great. They felt energy. Energy's real, right? Everyone listening to this right now, I know some people, their hearts are racing. They're like, oh shit, let me get shit done. I want to get my shit together. That's like a big phrase I hear a lot. I want to get my shit together. I have a lot of my shit together, not all of it. You know, I was telling you, like, didn't eat my full lunch. I have my own shit going on. I have my own support team. And it's the training of, I got to do it by myself. Let me try it by myself first. Why? You know, that's going to take you much longer and maybe it'll get done. But in that time, that's much longer, you're going to talk yourself out of it way more. You know,
And the other thing is that you don't even know what people need until you talk to them.
I don't even know. Yeah.
So how can you even serve them? Like, how are they even telling you what they desire unless you're having a fucking conversation? I mean, and what came up for me when you were talking about, like, yeah, I don't have a like the same elevator pitch every single week, right? Like, I've been learning this, like, when I go to my head and I'm like, I'm going to talk about this because this will be impressive, right? Like, it's totally ego.
Yes.
But when I come from my heart, people come to me at the back of the room and they're like, oh, we need to talk to each other. We need to have a coffee. We need to blah, blah, blah. I totally want to do what you're doing. I know that I'm hiring you. I know that, like, just tell me the amount. I'm waiting for my refund. Like, I'm there, you know, like, and it's because when you just show up and to me, like, I just feel like somebody needs this. Like, it's breathing into my heart and really focusing, like, am I coming from a space in my heart? Where am I coming from? Sorry, I didn't mean to happen to my
Yeah. I love,
like, yeah, go on.
I mean, the heart and pussy, like when the whole body gets chills, the biggest disservice is to be like, I probably can't afford her. Because that's what women do right away. Like, oh, she looks like she takes a lot of money. No way. People have said that. You probably charge a lot of money. Like, I charge enough for Fuck Your Fears, and I have a doormat rehab, which is a 30-day immersion. It's a group program. It's under $300. I know, it's such a great name. And it's like the doormat that we have all been, even on the subtlest of levels with our own selves,
Right.
is keeping everyone so stuck and so angry. And you know what? You start to look older. You start to be fucked up. You start to feel like everything's caving in on you. Your shoulders, your back hurt. Because inside you're having this turmoil and this inner civil war that is stopping you from your greatness. And it's really painful to see. And I'm sure it's painful to live that way.
I love that you just verbalized that, because since I left corporate 5 years ago, I have had people who've been in my life be like, you literally have aged backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, and I've always just said, well, it's meditation. It's meditation. I meditate a lot. Well, I meditate a lot and fucking boundaries.
Yes.
I enforced boundaries. And I said, like, I will not compromise what I know to be true for my soul and myself for anyone's comfort any longer.
So good. And that's a big piece. It's like getting comfortable with making other people uncomfortable. You're not physically hurting them. You're not causing them pain. You're giving them an invitation to do their own work. And they might be pissed. This woman who was nasty to me, she might come to me in a year and be like, I am so glad you did a live about that. Because I blasted it. I was like, I'm not hiding this. You know? And I think that most women are afraid that they're con artists, that they are, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not yet. Well, here's the thing. If you're transparent about it and you say, I've only been coaching for a year, let's do a beta program. It'll be this amount because I really just want to get my muscles going. You will have women signing up. But when you pretend, and I know this really well, when you pretend like I got my shit together and you don't, you're misaligned. Like I was calling it burlesque for a long time. And after every class, I was really uncomfortable. And so recently, since I gave you my bio, I've changed the class name to Straight Up Stripper. It's so much more fun. It's because I've done burlesque, but I didn't do it for 11 years. But stripping, 11 years. So when I'm teaching Straight Up Stripper, there's more joy, there's more excitement. I end the class, I feel good. After every burlesque class, I was like, why do I feel so fucked up? Because I was faking it on some level. You know, I was transparent and said I hadn't done it for a long time, but I was pretending like my body was like, then do this. And I'm like, oh, that sounds good. But stripping, shit, I could do that with my eyes closed, you know, with a flu, whatever. And so if we're not truthful,
Yes.
we're off alignment and then shit doesn't flow. And then the client is discouraged and frustrated. And then you're like, this doesn't feel good. Maybe I shouldn't be a coach. You see, I was right. And the ego part of the brain that wants to be right about shitty stuff, because that's a bad habit, is like, yeah, you're right. You should go get a job.
Right.
And then no one knows why they don't do it. You know, how many women did I start with 10 years ago when I got my first coaching program? It was 2006. Where do those? They're not all around anymore. You know, people have given up, and that sucks because the people they could have serviced never got their genius.
I love this, and I just feel like I want everyone to take your your fears course. Like, I just, it's so amazing.
Right, women who are ready to take action, ready to be supported. Right. Because
Right.
there are women who really want to do it and they disappear. So let's get even more ninja about who shows up, you know? And the truth is, I have a conversation with someone free. I'm on the phone. I'm like I am now. I really am the way I am. So if that is when someone says, let me go think about it, I'm like, there's nothing else to consider. This energy right now, what do you feel in your body? Right. And so making money decisions on your own are going to always turn to shit. It's a fact. I'm not an absolutist, but it's a fucking fact. If you're questioning shit and then you go off on your own, it's over. So, yeah.
Especially when you don't have enough wins.
Yes.
In your back pocket.
Yes.
To say, no, I can do this.
Yes.
Because often we may not even be questioning the coach. We're questioning our own ability to carry through and actually do the shit that we want to do.
Most of the time. It's definitely not personal. My inner self, like my inner child might be like, she doesn't like me. And I'm like, okay, that little girl in me is not my business. She's not running my business. Let her go make some art afterwards. So inner child is something we work with because that's who shows up.
Absolutely. When we're up leveling, she's got a lot to say.
Lots. She's tantruming. She's like, I'm hungry. I don't want to do my calls. I want to go eat some cake. You know, and that doesn't go anywhere. The other night, I didn't, you know, I do a lot of just friendly outreach. I keep in touch with everybody. So it was like 11:30. I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'll just do it on Saturday. Like I made some excuse. And I'm like, Shane, I did my couple of calls. The next day, this woman returned to me from years ago. She's like, I want to do your program. I told her this story because I was like, when you run and hide, the universe doesn't provide. That rhymes.
Ooh, I love that.
I love that too. When you hide, the universe doesn't provide. So I wanted to say it again. So just saying like, look, you showed up today. I picked up the phone, which I never do randomly because of boundaries, right? But I picked up. She signed up. She paid the same day. I have zero doubts she will not be successful. She's in. She said yes to herself. She made the outreach, you know, and it's like, I love getting on a call and people really question me because it's called a curiosity call. And they're like, so I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm like, maybe we could refer each other. Like, stop projecting your fears out there. We got on the phone. It's like, who knows what's going to happen?
Right.
And to really come from that place of curiosity. I don't know sometimes. Sometimes I know it's going to be an enrollment sales call. So if someone says, I want to hear about your friggin' program, then I know. But sometimes I'm drawn to someone and I don't even know why. And then we end up collaborating or referring each other or just doing an on-air interview and just making each other shine. Like the muscle of fear around money limits people's opportunities. And that really sucks because they could be making money from that phone call.
In some way, shape, or form, whether directly or indirectly through relationship. I think that's the other thing that we've misconstrued, that money needs to be this thing that we're stealing it from somebody, we're taking it from somebody. It's not from like, no, I'm serving you, like, or we have a relationship and I want you to succeed. I want to refer people to you. I want to help you in this way.
Yeah.
We have this really wonky thing with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's based on lack, but with, just with compassion, I've been there, like
Right.
I had my electricity shut off a couple of years ago. I have some really fucked up money stories. And then there was a time I was like, I'm going to call everybody in my Facebook group. And I did. And this is no judgment, just, assessment, but I reached women who were fired that day or like that week, living in a trailer park, like really women who were desolate. And I was like, there's the mirrors, so you can't fake it. You can't make money, but you can build relationships. And that's the kind of abundance where if you're consistent, you show up all the time. Like now people are reaching out to me for Fuck Your Fears. I don't have to do a lot of like output on that program because I'm doing it and I'm helping people produce their events and their businesses. And they're like, I wouldn't have done this without Shane. I wouldn't have been here. And so there's this symbiotic, again, blasting out of like, I'm successful because she's successful. And that to me is a mega sisterhood where we're not all trying to sell each other t-shirts, but we're trying to grow. Like I don't do food work. I don't do diet nutrition. It's not my jam at all. But I have amazing women to refer. And I'm not like, I'm not trying to wiggle them into my world. I'm just like, go, let's all make money and go to party together. Let's all make money and thrive together, which is completely opposite the way I was raised, which is like, look at her shirt, look at her man, like the competitiveness and jealousy and envy and non-sisterhood. That's how I was.
I love that. It's so true. So many of us were raised in that space. And
time.
For sure. I mean, it's years and years and generations and generations. But I want to go back to something that you said that I just want to pull it, like that mirror that if you're listening to this and you're not a coach and you don't understand what the mirror means. So Shane, do you want to explain that a little bit deeper?
Oh, yes, I'd love it. So, and this can be, I'm going to break it down really practical because I know that if anybody, I don't want to explain to the most negative person because I could do that too, but let's just assume like, I like this. I want to know more. That's who I'm talking to, but I don't know what that means. So we're a reflection of each other. So if I am, I'm not a vegetarian. Well, I'll use my real life. So I've been doing a carnivore diet. So if I'm at a vegetarian event and everybody's talking about their plant-based eating, I'm just going to like not be interested. Right? So I think this is going to make sense. But so I went to this other event and I meet some woman and she brought these meatballs with pork rinds. And I was like, oh, so as a human being relationship, I had more to talk to about her. Really simple, like there's a reflection of someone that's doing the same research as me. Now to go a little bit more woo-woo, when I was on the train, not recently, a while ago, and there was I was feeling so angry. I hate the train. I had to be on it, whatever. I was feeling rage, like entire rage because the train was late. It was dark. I just wanted to be home. I'm a driver. And in walks this man who had tattoos all over the place, like all over his face. He was breathing heavy and he had this angry dog with him and it was a service dog and didn't look like he had a home. I assumed he was homeless. Anyway, this may not make sense. Maybe you'll do better. But I looked at him and I'm like, there's my anger. Like he showed up and I felt like that's what my anger looks like, And so if you've ever done any conversation where you want something and all of a sudden you hear the dialogue back to you that sounds so familiar and it's you, it's like you're attracting the exact energy that you are. I was not happy with the whole explanation. So if you want to try, that would be better.
I love it. No, I think that's really spot on. It's basically like somebody cuts you off while you're
Yeah.
driving and you're like, oh my God, that asshole, blah, 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 and go on a diatribe. But that person cut you off because it's mirroring back to you your own
Yeah.
energy in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you didn't just cut off a car and then you got cut off, but where did you cut off somebody, maybe in a conversation or in
Yeah.
your life or
I
in
love
a friendship? Like,
I love
you did something that was so like similar energetically to that situation. That car was a mirror to help you see what's going on. And that is a lot of what coaching is, right?
That's great. Okay, as you were talking, I think this also makes sense. So let's imagine there's a certain type of people that always make you angry, right? Like, I had a client and she was like, I hate obese people. When I see them, I get so pissed. And I was like, okay, well, let's look at that. Why? And then deep seated in her, she was a super athlete, right? So it makes sense, like, oh, because they're not working out. But because in her mind, she really related to really wanting to overeat. And she related to the extremism of working out. So she was like mad at herself. And when someone does something, when there's something that makes you mad, there's something in there. Like, why is it doesn't make me mad? But it made her mad. So like the reflection of her wound, of her being angry that maybe, her family wasn't so healthy, or that she's overdoing her workout, they're overdoing their food. There's a similarity there. So I think in one of those descriptions, people probably get it if they don't
I
get it.
love that. No, it's so true. It's so true. Oh, I love that. I could literally talk to you all day. Um,
True. But let's leave some
this,
goodies for people, because I would love if people have any questions, like to just ask, because I love answering questions.
I love it. So we're going to cut the conversation, and I know Shane has an amazing free gift for you guys. So please tell us more about it and where they can find it, and so they can continue the conversation with you in all these other juicy ways.
Beautiful. So the challenge that we just wrapped up was called A Week of Enchantment. This one is for women. I do work with men one-on-one, but this one's for women. And it's a week of doing different challenges that get your life to be more enchanting. And enchanting to me means, I wrote a whole thing, but it's like basically being magical, having an impact on people, owning your power, and just doing it in a way that feels so magical. So whether you like sparkles or not, when you enter a room, when you leave a room, and you've said nothing, that there's a big impact. And it also means we're very generous and creative. So there's something in there about mailing cards to foster kids. So basically it's 7 days of video and assignments to do. And it's in the Awkward Academy, which is the online academy that I own. And so I will give you the link, and it'll be free for anybody that watches your watch.
Oh, I love it. So you'll be able to find that link at divinefeminineleaders.com/enchantress hyphen Shane, and or on YouTube. If you find us on YouTube, it will be there. Shane, thank you so much for your generosity, just in spirit, in love, in conversation, and enlightening the planet and everyone in it, and being here today. I really, really appreciate you.
Me too. You really brought out goodies in me that I've never said quite the way I've said today. So I'm super grateful. I can't wait to share this with my people too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is a Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. We are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. And we really honor you for coming in, for sharing this space with us today. We wish you so much love, so much abundance. Please, if something, there's so many good nuggets in here. If you feel called to share this with your friends, with your family, with your entrepreneurship tribe, we really would love that, to share and help raise the vibration of the consciousness of the collection. That is what we're here to do, and to bring more wealth and cash and prosperity and abundance and health and love to everyone who touches this podcast in any way, shape, or form, and the people who touch those people, etc., through the entire ripple effect of the collective. Thank you so much for being here. Subscribe so that you can get more juicy, fun interviews like this, and we will see you next week. Mwah.
Oh, that's fun.